Hey guys, couple quick things before we get started. First of all, the Black Eyed Kids thing, I'm leaving it. It's, I searched and there was nothing in the spectrogram or anything like that. Sorry it took so long to update. I've just been really busy. Another thing, if you guys have stories that you want me to read on here, it doesn't even necessarily have to be creepy stories, and then I'll read them on here. Also, if you have like a particular thing that you want me to read, like a particular story, or if you would rather I do something kind of like a few of the other readers do and just read a few things off of like Reddit No Sleep or something like that, I can do it that way. And then yeah, also if you have a creepy or scary story or whatever that you would like to submit yourself, just email me enlistedplague9@gmail.com. And yeah, anyways, on with the story. Room 210. Of places that you would think haunted and creepy, hospitals and nursing homes at about 1 a.m. are the worst. Death and illness run the halls of these institutions on a daily basis. The walls become infected with it. The floors and fixtures are run down by it. Each room becomes a cell of this thing, and at times makes it appear living. Let me tell you a story about a particular room, one that has become known as the Death Room. That room is Room 210. Incident 1. From what we know, the real disturbances in the room began after the death of a male patient. We'll call him Jerry. Jerry was well known to the nurses because of his frequent attempts to make himself vomit. He would stick his entire hand into his throat and make himself gag. Jerry even got to the point with his illness that no one would believe him when he said he was sick. Then one particular day he began complaining about having a bad headache. After repeatedly pestering the nurse, she finally told him to go lay down and she would bring him some pain reliever. Jerry went to his room, cursing at the nurse the entire way down the hall. The nurse, after grabbing some pain reliever, made her way down the hall and entered his room. Screams were heard throughout the facility at that moment, and the other nurses came running to aid. What they found was horrible. Jerry had made it to his room, but hadn't survived beyond that. Blood seemed to be coming out of every part of Jerry. It had pooled on the floor around him, and was spreading in thin red lines around the edges of the room, to the edges of the room. A superstition in facilities of this sort that when someone dies, you open the windows to allow their souls to escape. But countless tries proved that Jerry's windows wouldn't open. Weeks after removing his body and cleaning the room, the nurses still believed that Jerry was there. And future incidents seemed to prove that something was indeed in that room. Incident 2. Mr. Rathburn was on his second round at the facility. The first time he had been a pleasant man. He had gone through treatment and had gone home with high hopes. This time he had fallen down and broken his hip and was put in room 210. The rumors were that he wasn't going to make it this time. The first night, it was said that he could be heard screaming all throughout the building. Every time a nurse would enter his room, he would sit straight up and tell them that demons were pulling him under. Another time a nurse went into his room and he tried to speak, and it looked and sounded as if something or someone was trying to strangle him. You could actually see finger marks. Still, other nurses spoke of a shadow that would sneak down the hall and go into the room shortly after Mr. Rathburn would start screaming. The day that he passed away, they said, was a dreadful one. He screamed and screamed until his voice was nothing but a whisper. They said his eyes almost bulged right out of his head in fright. His last words were, "They're coming to get me." Instant 3. Mr. Collins had only moments left when they moved him into room 210. His wife was in another room close to his. She spent most of her time at his side waiting for the inevitable. This particular night, however, she had went to her room and crawled into bed to rest for a while. She had fallen asleep to be awakened by a commotion in the hallway. A nurse ran by her room in a state of panic. Miss Collins poked her head out to the hallway and noticed that it was her husband's room that they were going into. She threw her robe around her and headed in that direction. One of the aides tried to caution her and keep her back, but she pushed her way through and into the room. There was her husband's dead body in the bed, with eyes and mouth wide in terror. All around him on the floor was glass from the lights overhead, but not a piece was in the bed with him. His privacy curtains were shredded from ceiling to floor, as if someone had taken a knife to them. Miss Collins had to be sedated that night. The memory of her husband's face haunted her until her last moments, but especially when they transferred her to room 210. Alright, guys, that one is by original author joeeglyauthor. I hope I'm not botching that horribly. Let me know what you guys think of the story. Also, do you prefer this voice when I'm telling a story, or this voice? It's really your call, but if you prefer one over the other, I'll start using that one more often for stories. So, yeah. I'm EP9, and I'm signing off. Thanks for listening.